cycle here. It's the 31st of December. In an hour and a half I have to be at a dinner party, but I wanted to see if I could just speed run through the books of 2021. I want this to culminate in sort of my top 10 reads of the year. I'm not quite sure what I'll do in editing, if I'll put the top 10 first or last, but yeah, for now I'm just going to hop into it and just briefly talk about the books I've read and maybe a bit more detail on the top 10. We'll see. I'll probably have to interrupt this video ad anyway. Starting out, The Illogic of Cassel. I think that I wasn't in the right space reading this. Like it's an interesting setting, and other people also liking him. But yeah, I was not quite, like, the prose felt a little too simple. The style was very straightforward. But I think I'll give Bartleby the Scrivener a go before I write off Vilmotas entirely, because I think that there is something about his literary obsessions that is probably quite good. I read Hesiod, Works and Days. I also read the Aurista Trilogy by Aeschylus. I don't have a copy of that, and they were great. They're just sort of things that you just gotta know. I read Ultramarine, Malcolm Lowry. It has its moments. It has sort of fluttering images of the mature Lowry, but yeah, this didn't quite do it for me. But it's part of an ongoing project to read all of Lowry, and fairly, for what it is, fairly enjoyable. I read Three Wogs by Theroux, which, to be honest, put me in a little bit of a crisis of faith with Theroux, because I think that Darkenville's Cat is exceptionally good. I think that he shows that he is a master of language. He masters style, and everything about that book is perfect. Whereas here we get some of the linguistic fireworks in this book as well. But when it comes to the actual writing, it's just kind of flat, racial stereotypes playing out pretty simple plots. I did not have a terribly good time with this. And it's hard to say if all the racism and misogyny is sort of making fun of racists and misogynists. Maybe. I think that it's something that one can explore in literature either way, but it just didn't quite hit as hard as what I expected. There is some writing here that is very good. I read this Malcolm Lowry biography by Douglas Day, and I watched a documentary with some interviews and such as well, and this is an exceptionally good biography. I have to say this. Sometimes I'm a little on the fence about whether autobiographical details enhance or detract from a work for me, but this was wonderful, and I feel like the way I've read Lowry is that I first read Under the Volcano, and then I read David Markson's Laurie's Volcano, and then I read Under the Volcano again, and then I read this biography, and I feel like that was like a very good way of doing it. And I feel like this biography actually gave me a lot in appreciating his life and the tragedy, his personal tragedy, and also gave me even more appreciation for the book, which I think we'll get another reread next year. That's truly magnificent work. I read Light by Eva Figes. This is very good. This is very beautiful language. It has like this, you could call it impressionistic, but it's sort of a very detailed, keen eye, like a sort of aesthetic eye that describes these little beautiful details that just feels very fitting for a book about Monet. Kind of interesting how the title of the book is Light, and light is very prominent in the story, and it's sort of Monet and his granddaughter, I think, this little girl at least. They're like the two people who really notice it, while everyone else is just sort of focused on their own things. Monet and this little girl, they see the light and sees how magical and beautiful and transformative it is. So this is very highly recommended. You didn't see that. Mr. Dynamite by Meredith Brosnan. I think this was a book that I found out about just by going to MJ Nichols on Goodreads and sorting by 5-star reviews, and this one, I don't know how many pages down this one showed up, but it's very interesting. It's very funny. It's sort of like a punk literary with Nail and I, if you're familiar with the movie. It's like this old has-been rocker who gets a letter from his lawyer about possibly or that he's supposed to inherit a lot of money, and he answers this lawyer, and he keeps writing letters to this lawyer. He thinks of him as his best friend all of a sudden, and the lawyer dies, but oddly enough, the rest of the book continues with the protagonist still writing to this lawyer about sort of confessional, sort of what's going on in his life, complaining about the new lawyer and how he's not getting his money. And it's a fun ride. It's very sad that Meredith Brosnan never published a sequel. Well, online you can find an excerpt from a future book that just never came out, but very good. Don't get too excited. I only read the Inferno and half of Purgatorio. It's something that I have to have time and energy for, but the Inferno is really good. Or I also read Ovid and the Aeneid in preparation for reading The Death of Virgil, and this is also part of that because I'm looking forward to that next year. But yeah, Blood in Water starts really poorly. I really didn't like this weird. They're walking around. There's like this primal scream group. Just did not at all impress me. I thought this was going to be a 2-star read, but it really does pick up a lot in the second half and the last third. This part here, where there's a tailor named Pavarotti that's being put in a play about Aegisthus and Agamemnon, was quite good. So this is picked up. I think I need to read the rest of the trilogy to really have an idea, but it is interesting, and it is published as a journal of experimental fiction, so that's kind of neat. Ole Robert Sunde, some prose poetry by a Norwegian author and poet. I think he lived quite close to where I grew up. It was pretty okay. Some of it was quite good, some of it was just a bit boring, but I think I have some other stuff by him that I'm quite excited about, so hopefully that'll pick up. I read The Modernist novel by Stephen Kern. This is an actual library book. But yeah, this was great. I'm not an English major. I don't have all of this. I don't have all of the sort of basic university English knowledge that I know a lot of people in this space has. So for me, this was just it was nice to read about the stuff I knew about and have books that I've read, and also, you know, some of the modernists that I haven't read. It's just got me really excited for. But yeah, quite good. Probably wouldn't buy this edition since it's probably quite expensive, but if you have a library has it and you're interested in that sort of thing, it's yeah, pretty good. From the Mercy to the World. This is another Laurie book, and it's just okay. There is some neat Laurie inspired art. There are some articles by artists and local people inspired by Laurie. So it's just sort of, and it's like a very nicely produced book. Really high quality paper, great texture. Not as essential as the Day biography, but yeah, it was fine. Perfectly fine. Quiet Creature on the Corner. Talked about it a little bit in a as of yet unreleased video, but it's probably one of the weaker reads of the year. It sounds great, like it says here, reminiscent of films of David Lynch, and there are some things that are weird in the same way. The story progresses sort of quickly and in cuts. There's unlikable protagonist. Very quickly goes from being arrested to being moved and held captive by some people for no good reason. And there are little smidges of good language and nice imagery and skies clotted with stars and some halfway decent attempts at poetic prose, but yeah, it was like a 2-star read for me. Your Face Tomorrow, Javier Maria's, was okay. It was not amazing, but it is at times quite sort of comfy in the sense that, you know, it's got like this Oxford academic setting. Smart people have smart conversations. He has obsessive bouts of pulling all-nighters in strange, I don't mean strange as in weird, but in as other people's libraries. It's okay, but it's only just okay. It's not so bad that I won't continue the series, because this is a trilogy. but it wasn't so good that I started right on book 2 straight after either. So, Cathedral of Mist by Paul Willems. This was quite good. This is a Belgian fantasist. Distill the tales of distant journeys, buried memories, and impossible architect. This is very good. It's sort of, if not similar writing to it, at least sort of evokes Schwab and that sort of writer to me. Quite short, sadly. Wakefield Press. But yeah, this one is great. This one I would recommend to anyone. Next up, Monsterary by Julian Rios, a Grossman translation. Yeah, this is good. I have not read his Loves That Bind, which is supposed to be a very sort of sensuous, erotic love letter to writing, but I read this, and I'm preparing to read Larva, Midsummer Night's Babel, and it's been a while since I read this, but I was impressed. This had good writing. Mysterious Flame of Queen Loana. I've spoken about this on the channel, so I won't spend too much time on it. Starts great. As sort of love letter to Oliver Sacks, Umberto Eco's attempt at writing and unwriting and Amnesiac. There's like a middle part that just goes on just a little bit too long, where definitely interesting, but it's not Eco's strongest. So if you haven't read any Eco, then start with Name of the Rose or Bottolino, Foucault's Pendulum. House in the Country by Jose Donoso. Yeah, it's great. I also read 3 or so books on Donoso. I haven't updated on my Goodreads. I was preparing more in-depth video on Donoso, and maybe I'll do that next year. I'll reread some of that and do a reread of The Obscene Bird of Night. But yeah, this is really, really good, really weird, magical, and you have these adults who are just so far removed from reality, and they go off on a vacation and leave their children behind, and even though they think that they're only gone for a night, years pass for the children, and they have like riots and they capture each other, and there's cannibals, and yeah, it's weird. Not as weird as The Obscene Bird of Night, but nor as good. But still, solid read. Molina by Ingeborg Bachmann. This was good. There's something forceful about her prose style that just sort of stuck with me, and there's nothing of what's going on in the book that I could say was exciting or interesting, yeah. But a lot of the writing, these weird letters and everything, is just quite unique. Really would like to get Bachmann's poetry and letters. But yeah, I think I'll have to reread that one of these years. Hawks. Love Hawks. This was reasonably good. It's not as good as The Lime Twig or his more famous works. It's a bit too much on the erotic, and sort of the main protagonist is being cuckolded by his best friend, and at the same time is cheating on his wife on his cruise ship. Might be interesting for some people, but it's just... But what's being done through the narrative is interesting, and when you read through it, you're starting to realize that it sort of ends in the same place it begins, and there are some details that aren't quite what they seem. And he's a great writer. Even if he writes about uninteresting things, it's still a great book. yeah, Rolling Shadows, really like this. Talked about this in a video review in detail, so I'm not gonna talk more about it.